Hi and welcome. This is the second part of my previous video talking about blind spots, INFJ and INFP, very specific, and other empath specific blind spots, shortcuts of unconscious ways of behaving and being that allow people like us be easily taken advantage of, used, overwhelmed, drained, experiencing burnout, and dissolve their identity into others, and as they constantly reassure, help others, give away their preferences, and all these things I explained in the first part of what I'm going to share today. That was more theoretical part when I was talking about the blind spots. Today I will go into explaining a little bit how you as yourself can work with this subject. I have my own ways that is going to be really hard to share in full detail, but I will do my best in dissecting how you can do it on your own. First of all, the very important reason that underlies all these blind spots of disappearing, surrendering themselves into other people and doing all that stuff, as in acting as extras in someone else's movie, acting as extra, or being that chameleon that always adapts to other people. The root cause of this, like I was speaking in that first part, is the energetic imprint. What is that energetic imprint? Well, this is the nature of us. This is the energetic nature that people like us have, that makes us be born and develop not a very well embodying ourselves in this body, in this flesh. It is very interesting when you acknowledge this, when you learn to see it. It makes it so obvious why it's so hard for people like us who haven't changed this construct to the extent that we can, why it's so hard to exist in physical reality, why it's almost boring, why it's painful to be in that reality, why you're walking into door frames and still, after years and decades of living in the same apartment, can't fit in between, the sofa and an armchair without hitting yourself or knocking some lamp, right? Even though it had been standing there always, right? So there is this difficulty in orienting yourself in physical reality because you're not fully oriented in your physical body. This also explains all the boundary issues. Boundaries are also what is around our bodies, right? So this is the imprint I'm talking about. And I remember now that I was talking a lot about this in my other episodes, talking about why it's so easy to project on empaths. So definitely go into there. I explain allegory and more of that imprint. But let's go down to the more practical ways how you can orient yourself better in that body, how you can bring this a little bit more inwards instead of constantly leaving your body, constantly giving yourself away and dissolving and doing all that stuff. I was talking a lot about last time the choices. We need to become conscious of what we do, why we do it, and then start taking the right choices. So this is going to be part of the psychological aspect of your healing, so to speak. And this is something that really all of the INFJ and INFP people and virtually all highly sensitive people would need to do better, is defining themselves. selves, as in asking yourself these kind of questions. What are my preferences? What do I stand for? And, going deep and deep, asking about what do I like? What do I not like? Things that are heavily subjective and only particular to you, especially the things that disagree with the mainstream, disagree maybe with all your friends, that are not like something that is popular or something. I want you really to focus on some of those things. Now, it might take a while. You might need to journal about it for quite some time and actually have a separate part of your journaling to add to it as you go. Because for people like us, it is hard. Even though you have your own preferences, maybe you have your quirky interests, maybe you're into fantasy or some quirky books or some weird movies or other passions or interests. These are very particular and these are super important that you put down there. But it's also about the values that you have, because as much as it's easy to go into stuff that are interesting, but going deep into the values. And how you can do it is to simply know what do you stand for. So what is something that you wouldn't want to compromise in it, and maybe sometimes you did. Maybe value that is dear to your heart is your freedom. However, you, by your unconscious blind spots and those behaviors and ways of being, you've been giving yourself away. And for so many INFJ, freedom is super important, right? For me, it's the number one thing, freedom and truth. And I could not sacrifice neither of the two. That's why many people might not like me, and I'm fine with this. But this is when you can start asking yourself questions. Are you fine with people not liking you when you express any of your interests, any of your values, whatever is on your list? And affirming this, maybe in the group of your friends, maybe if you have a habit of staying silent and letting everyone else talk, and not wanting to offend other people and just nodding and agreeing with other people, then again, you're giving your truth away, right? So it's important that you start speaking up. And this is when we bring this more into physical, embodied state. When you start acting on your values, when you start acting on yourself, on love for yourself. And definitely, if you haven't downloaded my guide, and there is also a masterclass how I talk about those choices as you subscribe to my newsletter, these choices are really what we can physicalize as we do the things that are important for us. Now we want to revert that and bring it inwards so that we solidify through our embodied actions, through speech, through expression, what is me? What is your identity? What is dear to your heart, right? So this is one way of physicalizing, and the longer you do it, the more you coalesce this power inward, the more you become more confident of yourself, the more you feel like, oh yeah, I can say what I want. And over time you start feeling okay with people disagreeing with you, because you get a kick out of the fact that, well, there is at least one person in all that crowd that always validates me, and this is me, right? When you share yourself openly with conviction, and by the way, this conviction might not be immediately apparent to you, it might be a bit awkward, but I want you to still start doing this if you are up to that experiment. Now, it may take a while before you start feeling that power. But again, like I speak in that masterclass that I gave away for free, it is a compounding thing. It's a compounding way of investing in yourself. And as more you invest in yourself, the more you grow that solidity. And here is where it starts becoming more graphic, so to speak. Our type, to start with, is not fully embodied. It's almost like dissolved a little bit. It's like no edges, no clear layers to it. The actions that you start doing, the choices that you start doing, they make you more solid. They make you kind of denser a little bit to some extent. If I'm expressing this, I'm trying to express it in the way everyone can understand it. Now, what is bound to come up as you are engaging in that psychological strengthening of your identity is that emotions will come up. Negative emotions and resistance will come up. And this is natural. This is part of the process, and this is something to be expected. Because when you are trying to reclaim all that energy, reclaim the priority, the sovereignty over your life, emotions will come up. And this is natural. There will be fear, there will be guilt, there will be self-doubt, and all kinds of things that are very uncomfortable, that might throw you off track and tell you, like, who are you to choose yourself? Who are you to invest now in yourself? Who are you to put yourself first, right? And when you are used to being everything for everyone, this is something that's bound to happen. And you will be seeing that over time when you are trying to choose yourself. It's almost like you are, kind of waging a war with yourself, because now there are two different objectives, something that you're used to and something you want to bring back to yourself and heal these wounds of surrendering and giving yourself to others. So the important part is, that you are, first of all, self-compassionate. This is super important, that you forgive yourself every single time that you notice that you are falling back into those old ways. And it's hard. It's really hard. But second of all, to contain your emotions, to be with them. Just like you are reassuring everyone, just like you are trying to fix everyone's emotions and be there for them, that when you are present for everyone and absorb all that. Now is the time that you do all that to yourself, for yourself, actually. That you can contain all these difficult, painful emotions, and that you stay with it as much as you can. Now, if it is a trouble for you, especially if you have trouble, with disassociating, maybe you have some active traumas and you feel like you're afraid of working with it, or you just need support, it is always useful to have a guide. It is always useful to have a mentor who knows about mind-body connection. But you can also work with psychologists or with some therapists. Is also helpful. Now, also, what you can expect that when you are doing this for yourself, when you are trying to be unconditionally present, something that hardly anyone of people like us were given. We are always, used to being that buffer and helping others, but it's hard to receive, right? So as you are doing this for yourself, remember you are giving yourself gift of the unconditional presence that probably no one ever gave you in your entire life. This is a great gift. And know that it may be that you are going in to be present for yourself and to be compassionate, and you are then all of a sudden disappearing again from your body, just flying away in your consciousness and doing the old thing. This is also possible. Going in and just reminding yourself to collect that energy in your body, to collect that awareness on your sensations and just being with yourself, forgiving yourself all through that time, however long that takes. Now, this is a very important aspect. Like I said, when you start defining your identity and choosing yourself and physicalizing your preferences and your ego in this life, emotions are bound to come up. Now, for the second part, how to work with your body, it is very important that you engage in some body work process. And for my clients and for myself, I think this is it's something you cannot really ignore. I can't guess if you do any sort of exercise or if you engage in any body work, but what I always recommend, you can do a lot of different somatic work. If you do this process on your own, you can engage in some of the things that engage your lower part of your body, so your legs, your pelvis, your center of gravity, so that you can collect a lot of that energy and ground it downwards, in and down. And some of the things I can recommend just to anyone is that you can try, for example, something that's probably not what many INF people want to do, but weightlifting or resistance training or some sort of training that focuses on that gravity and allow you to really feel your space and feel like you have the right to be in this space, that you can occupy your boundary realms and all that's also kind of playing into that psychological remembering when you do that you've had that experience, that you've occupied that space and that you are owning it, so to speak. Now, these are just examples of different ways you can work with it, and these are very good examples for introverted, intuitive people and feelers like us. So I know by my own example that if I didn't do it alongside with all the strengthening of my ego, my self-validation, my taking choices and physicalizing them through action in my life and doing this over and over in a compounding way, there would not be a way that I would be feeling so strong in my body. So I hope this is helpful, but be sure, if you haven't done it yet, to sign up to my newsletter where I talk about those choices and making them real, that you focus on those self-loving, self-trusting and having faith in yourself choices that build that habit in our life of drawing that energy, of prioritizing ourselves and remembering that in all those unconscious choices that we are doing, there is a lot we can do. We can pay attention to that and we can choose ourselves. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, again, you can always email me.